Welcome to my channel. Support our channel by subscribing. Your subscription helps us grow and create more intriguing content like this. Now let's dive into today's story. David Kingsley had it all: a thriving career, wealth, a beautiful home, and, most importantly, a family he cherished deeply. His success as the CEO of a luxury hotel chain had come after years of relentless work and sacrifice, with the dream of creating a prosperous future for his wife, Clara, and their daughter, Jasmine. Although he worked long hours, his heart was always at home, where he envisioned a perfect life for his family. But beneath this picture-perfect exterior, an emotional void was growing. Clara had changed over the years, her initial pride in his accomplishments slowly transforming into resentment. She found herself alone, craving attention that David, busy and focused, unknowingly failed to provide. One evening, David returned home, eager to share some exciting news about a new hotel venture in Europe, a project he hoped would symbolize the next chapter of their lives. Clara, however, seemed more preoccupied with her phone than his enthusiasm, her distant demeanor hidden behind a forced smile. Jasmine, now 18, displayed an air of indifference, her focus drifting to her social media updates and friends. David brushed off the discomfort, attributing it to the stress and exhaustion of family life. Little did he know that this would be the beginning of a series of revelations that would unravel everything he held dear. It was a night he would later look back on as the final moments of his naive belief in family unity. Not long after, David faced a devastating blow in his business. An unexpected market downturn and a costly legal battle forced him to start liquidating assets and downsizing his company just to keep it afloat. Overnight, his luxurious world was on the brink of collapse. David did everything he could to manage the crisis without involving his family, hoping to shield them from the distress of losing their lifestyle. But while he was fighting to keep the company from bankruptcy, Clara and Jasmine were becoming distant, their interest in his well-being replaced by frustration and even annoyance. Clara spent her days and nights out at exclusive events, shopping trips, and social gatherings, often with Jasmine by her side, immersed in a lifestyle they took for granted. David's suspicion grew one night when he overheard Clara talking to someone on the phone, her voice soft and intimate. "I can't wait to see you again," she murmured, oblivious to David's presence just outside the room. His heart sank, his mind filled with questions he didn't want to ask. The next day, he noticed her glowing as she checked her phone, responding to messages with a smile she hadn't shown him in years. For the first time, David felt truly alone. He wondered if Clara had ever been faithful to the life they had built together, or if she'd only loved the privileges that his wealth could provide. David couldn't keep his suspicions at bay any longer. Summoning his courage, he confronted Clara one evening, asking her point-blank if she had been seeing someone else. Clara's initial reaction was defensive, denying any wrongdoing, but as David persisted, her demeanor shifted from defiance to cold indifference. "What did you expect, David?" she finally spat. "You were never here. You've always been more in love with your work than with me." David's heart shattered as he listened to her accusations. She wasn't remorseful. She was angry. She felt entitled to her actions, convinced she was justified in seeking comfort elsewhere. And then came the ultimate betrayal. Clara admitted she'd found someone who could give her the attention she craved, someone with wealth and charisma, who could take her places David had once promised but failed to deliver. To David's horror, Jasmine sided with her mother. She too blamed him for not providing the luxuries they'd once had, for allowing their high society status to slip. Without a second thought, they packed their bags, taking with them not only their belongings, but also David's trust and love. They walked out of his life, leaving behind an empty, silent home that once echoed with dreams of a happy family. David was left devastated, questioning every sacrifice he had ever made. After leaving David, Clara and Jasmine quickly discovered that life with Clara's new partner, Marcus, was not the glamorous fantasy they had envisioned. Though initially charming and attentive, Marcus was driven more by appearances than genuine affection. As the months went by, Marcus began to grow distant, his once frequent gifts and gestures dwindling. When his own fortunes took a hit, he cut Clara and Jasmine out of his life without a second thought, leaving them with nothing. For Clara, it was a crushing realization that her dreams of luxury were as fleeting as Marcus's interest in her. She had left behind a man who had genuine, someone who could give her the attention she craved, someone with wealth and charisma who could take her places David had once promised but failed to deliver. To David's horror, Jasmine sided with her mother. She too blamed him for not providing the luxuries they'd once had, for allowing their high society status to slip. Without a second thought, they packed their bags, taking with them not only their belongings, but also David's trust and love. They walked out of his life, leaving behind an empty, silent home that once echoed with dreams of a happy family. David was left devastated, questioning every sacrifice he had ever made. After leaving David, Clara and Jasmine quickly discovered that life with Clara's new partner, Marcus, was not the glamorous fantasy they had envisioned. Though initially charming and attentive, Marcus was driven more by appearances than genuine affection. As the months went by, Marcus began to grow distant, his once frequent gifts and gestures dwindling. When his own fortunes took a hit, he cut Clara and Jasmine out of his life without a second thought, leaving them with nothing. For Clara, it was a crushing realization that her dreams of luxury were as fleeting as Marcus's interest in her. She had left behind a man who had genuinely loved her, trading real loyalty for temporary thrills. Jasmine, who had idolized her mother's lifestyle choices, felt a deeper betrayal. She had turned her back on her father, a man who had always been there for her, for a life that proved to be a mere illusion. Facing financial hardship for the first time, Jasmine found herself lost, no longer able to afford the privileges she had once flaunted. She resented her mother for leading her down this path of disillusionment, and she missed the stability and warmth she had once taken for granted. With nowhere else to go, and only memories of her father's unconditional love, they both realized the cost of their choices. Months later, Clara and Jasmine, now humbled and broken, returned to David's doorstep. Gone were the designer clothes and the arrogant attitudes. They stood before him, visibly changed, their faces etched with regret. David opened the door, his expression unreadable as they poured out their apologies, each word heavy with remorse. Clara spoke first, her voice trembling as she explained how she'd been blinded by vanity, how Marcus had abandoned her as soon as things became inconvenient. Jasmine, too, offered an emotional apology, confessing how much she regretted choosing money over family and how deeply she missed her father. David listened quietly, his heart torn between anger and pity. He accepted Jasmine's apology, seeing in her a genuine desire to rebuild their bond. But with Clara, things weren't so simple. He had loved her once, with all his heart, but her betrayal had left wounds that couldn't be easily healed. Still, for the sake of his daughter, he agreed to let Clara back into his life, but only as a co-parent to Jasmine. There would be no rekindling of old love, only a shared commitment to support their daughter as she healed from the scars of their choices. In the months that followed, David began to rebuild his life, no longer chasing wealth, but focusing instead on what truly mattered, his relationships and his own inner peace. He and Jasmine worked on mending their bond, finding comfort in a relationship that was finally honest and grounded. Jasmine, now more mature and aware of life's true values, grew to appreciate her father's sacrifices, realizing that love and loyalty were worth more than any luxury. As for Clara, she sought redemption through small acts of kindness, volunteering her time and trying to make up for the years she had lost. While her relationship with David remained distant, she accepted it as the price she had to pay for her mistakes. She dedicated herself to making amends in other ways, hoping that her actions would one day allow her daughter to forgive her fully. David's journey taught him the fragility of wealth and the enduring strength of love and loyalty. He emerged from the ordeal wiser, ready to face the world with a heart that had been tested and strengthened. In the end, he found peace in accepting what he couldn't change and cherishing the people who had stood by him when it mattered most. Thank you for watching this tale of love, loss, and redemption. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives that remind us of life's true values. Double asterisk.